Hello, everyone. Welcome to number 5 here. This is our fifth Q&A. I've got some announcements, and I'm looking at the wrong sheet. Last week, I told you guys that I would write down the announcement stuff at the beginning so that I didn't sound stupid. Okay, first announcement. Got to keep this short because I have a lesson. So, nothing past an hour. Just under an hour. Also, next week, no Q&A. So if you were hoping to be there next week, not going to happen. All right. So, and I've been thinking about the Q&A, how it's been going, and I want to make a slight improvement on the way I've been doing this. People will ask questions, and I'll sometimes, in the middle of what I'm talking about, quit and howdy, David. And sometimes I will forget what I was talking about. And so from now on, I will answer the question when I'm finished with the previous question. Okay, so that's just something I wanted to get straight. Let you guys know that now. I'm not being rude if I don't answer your question right away. Just trying to finish up so I don't sound like a scatterbrain. All right, next one. Oh, last week. So one of the things I wanted to share with you guys is at the beginning of the Q&A is how stuff is going, right, for on the business side. And last week we didn't do much. So the last week was so busy. So the way my lessons and gigs work out, I can have a week where I'm committed to actually nothing, and then other weeks where I'll have a whole bunch of makeup students and a whole bunch of gigs, so that there's nothing going on, like no YouTube work, nothing. And this past week was sort of like that. You wouldn't know that because I published so many things, but those things were scheduled. The previous week, I knew this week was coming up, so I scheduled all of that stuff. So, you know what? There's one thing I want to get into real quick, and I can't mention details, but I heard some disturbing stuff over the week about some behavior of some people. And I want to just say right here that when you put music ahead of the way you treat people, right? If you think music is so important that it justifies treating somebody badly, you've got a problem. Yeah, I remember my dad told me one time, and he was wrong, and he later admitted that he was wrong. But he didn't know that I could make a living in music, and he told me that I needed to find a job to support my music habit. And he ended up being wrong. I haven't had a day job since 1988, 89, something like that. It's been a long, long time since I've had a day job. All of my income for the last, I guess that's 30 years now. All of my income for 30 years has been through music, either teaching lessons, writing music, selling my books, and playing gigs. So, yes, that's right. At least he realized he was wrong. Well, what happened is he came to visit. At that time, they were living in El Paso, and he came to visit, and I took him. Back in those days, I was playing with a cumbia band, and we were doing 3 or 4 gigs a day. And what we would do is we would play the flea markets. And I told my dad, because he liked flea markets, right? So we would go to the flea market. I took him with me to a gig on the flea market. And when I got home with him, that's when he apologized to me. He said he didn't think I could pull it off, the whole professional musician thing. So that was actually very cool. Um, anyway, so yes, I want to make this point. I'm going to be very vague about it because I don't want to, you know, it was just rumors, right? But if the rumors are true, I'm not going to spread rumors, but if the rumors are true, that's just disgusting behavior. Music is not more important than people. In fact, I've been saying all this time that music is the people. The culture and the people, those things go together. And I'll tell you what, if you dump on the people who in that culture, don't expect great things for your music. That's how I see that. So we have a question about my instrument. So this is my newest horn. That's probably the one everyone's asking about. This is a Pudgy P5. It's a prototype, and I don't know if he's selling them yet. I'm sure he will eventually. The instrument is very mellow sounding, so it's almost like a flugelhorn. And in fact, when I play on this horn, I almost always use this very deep mouthpiece. This mouthpiece is so deep that they shorten the shank to keep it in tune. So here's a regular mouthpiece, and this is a Shilke M1, and this is a Shilke F1. And if you put them together, the Shilke F1 is short because the cup is so deep. And they had to compensate so that it would be in tune, right? So yes, it's got a beautiful, almost flugelhorn-like sound. So yeah, it's a very beautiful sound. This horn has a story behind it too. This is the instrument that makes me all my money, and you can tell because it's kind of beat up right now. Look how bashed up that second valve slide is. Yes, I need to have it worked on. But this is my workhorse. I got this horn in 1999, and my original intentions were to get the lacquer stripped, but it was so beautiful when I got it. I didn't want to do that. But through the years now, the lacquer has become quite not so nice, and I just haven't gotten around to getting it stripped. I would like to, when I send it in to get this fixed, and there's some others that need to be fixed, I would like to have the lacquer stripped then, and it'll probably look like a brand new horn when I get that done. But this is what's wonderful about this. It's a box 72, but I got a reverse pipe large bore, and the large bore is not standard. So when I ordered this instrument, they had to put me on a 3-month waiting list because they don't stock this. They stock the same dimensions as this, but they stock only the medium large. And I can't play on a medium large instrument. I'll never forget when I played my first large bore, my teacher at the time, Sam Trimble, I was playing on a regular, 32 or whatever, and he was selling his. He let me try his large bore Bach, and it was like something snapped. I had been playing on a horn all those years, a medium large, that works against me. You know what naturally works for me? the large bore, I can't play on a medium large. It's just, I don't know what it is physically speaking, the way I'm set up, the way I do things. The large bore is like the perfect horn for me. So, but I use this instrument. The reason I like this horn so much is I can play it appropriately in just about every style of music that trumpet has. The only thing I can't do on this horn as well as I would like to do is to do that, you know, and it has nothing to do with the high notes. It has to do with the sound, okay? But there's that certain lead player zing that you can get on a smaller bore horn, a small, lightweight instrument. What's my favorite style? You mean style of music for the trumpet or to play? I don't have a favorite style. I don't have a favorite style for listening or to play. And I don't have a favorite style for playing. You know what happened to me is because remember, I'm real big on this whole thing about the culture. If you have love for all people, and if your musicianship is founded based on that love for people, then the style that those people listen to, that they perform, is the people themselves. I keep saying it over and over and over again. You can't separate the people from the music. So if I say I don't like this style, then I'm saying that I don't like those people. And maybe a lot of people will disagree with me about that. Maybe a lot of people will disagree, but when I think sometimes what we're looking at is our own personal preferences, but my personal preference is based on the people I'm working with. And there's very, very few people that I don't want to work with. And most of that's for reasons that I won't go into now. So yes, I don't have a favorite style or anything like that. So is using a beginner or intermediate trumpet for marching band detrimental to your progress when your main horn is a professional level? Not at all. Not at all. I would say that that's probably the best way to go. Don't beat up your good horn on the field, please. Be more respectful of because you know what? Stuff happens on the field. I remember one time, high school for me was so long ago that I can't even remember if this happened to me or somebody else. So, but I do remember someone got the instructions wrong, and one guy turned this way and the other guy turned that way, and whack, there goes the instrument. Both of them have instruments that smashed into each other. And there was another time, what our school used to do after marching season. So let's say the contest is over and there's a few games left. We used to do crazy stuff in those last games. And we did a human pyramid, and everybody put their instruments down, ran, did the pyramid, came back. When I got back, my horn was crushed. So don't take your horn on the field. If you've got an old beginner horn, and in fact, I'll go as far as to say that playing on a bad horn can actually help you as a player, because there's things when you have a good horn, there's things you don't have to deal with. And if you can deal with those things on bad horn, on a beginner horn, and then go to your other horn. I actually think if you got two horns and one of them plays badly, practice on the one that plays badly. Now, I teach 7 stages of preparing music, and that idea of playing on a horn that's not any good falls in the 6th stage of those 7 stages. All right. So I'm not saying do this on a regular basis, but after you've learned the piece and you've mastered it, because I mean, think about that. What happens if you've mastered it on your good horn and something happens and you don't have access now to your good horn for the audition? Shouldn't you at least be able to make your old horn work? Right? So to me, I think there's actually a lot of good in playing on a horn like that. That's not as good as your good horn. All right, what's the next one? I'm in Brazil. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. You know what? I have a lot of streams. I'm on Spotify, and most of the streams that people listening to my music is from Brazil. I get an average of 3,000 to 4,000 streams per week from Brazil alone, just from Brazil alone. And so that, to me, when I first saw that, I was surprised. I didn't even, because that kind of music, I didn't think maybe people down there like that kind of music, but apparently it's very popular down there. Well, welcome to my channel from Brazil. What's next? Okay, good. Any other questions? I said at the beginning of this that I have to keep this one short because I do have lessons starting right at 10:30. So, oh, okay. Well, thank you. He says he doesn't speak English, but he watches my music videos. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So I'm glad you like it. There's a trumpet player in Brazil. I believe he's in Brazil, that I'm subscribed to him, and he does wonderful work too. And he plays a lot of hymns the way I do too. I think I do more different kinds of stuff than he does, but I subscribed to him a long time ago. Any other questions? Did I get all my things on the list? Yeah. So yeah, I mentioned earlier the 7 different stages. Could you? Okay, let me tell you my valve oil story. The question is, could you share your opinion on valve oils and what is better? Well, first I have to start that by saying it depends on what you're doing and what your preferences are, and that's kind of like the go-to answer for everything, right? I can tell you what my preference is, and each time I test this, in fact, let me go get my oil real quick so I can show you. When I was at ITG, at ITG, I told them I'd do this kind of valve oil, and the guy rolled his eyeballs. But then it was one of the competitors, though. Every time I try to switch to something else, I end up coming back to this oil again. This is Binac Pro. It's kind of hard to get. And here's the thing, is it's not like regular valve oil, and it's so different from regular valve oil, you can't use both. So you can't, someone asked me the other day, oh, no, what happened is because of this new horn, I haven't been practicing on the old horn. And I went to a rehearsal on Sunday, and because it had been so long since I oiled it, because I rarely have to oil more than once a week on this oil. That's why I've got so much still in there. Um, but my horn seized up, and I had to switch to the new horn, and he offered to give me valve oil, and I said I can't use it because of this other other oil, and for some reason I didn't have any in my bag, so it just can't be mixed like that because it's. I think she said it's mineral oil based. Okay, I'll tell you what. On this horn, I have only ever used the Binac Pro. Whatever it had when it came in, I got rid of it right away. And look at this. This horn is 20 years old. Look at the quality. Usually by 20 years, you've got all kinds of marks on the valves and stuff like that, wear marks. This almost binds with the metal to create it's almost like a Teflon coating over the valves, and it's just. And the other thing is because it's not based on kerosene. Most valve oils are based on kerosene, like what you put in a lamp to like the old kerosene lamps. I think she said this is based on mineral oil, so it doesn't just evaporate. With regular oil, you have to put at least daily, and depending on where you live, you might have to put regular oil on 3, 4, 5 times a day. Okay, so yeah, that's the oil that I prefer. And here's the thing: she invented this oil because she had asthma. And here's what I've been telling people. This oil, I got it because of my valves. And when I ran out the first time, I tried to go back to other oil. And I hadn't realized during that time that I stopped having allergy attacks when I was playing my horn. It turns out that the traditional valve oils used to, I guess, irritate my sinuses or something. So, so every time I think maybe I should try something else, I try something else, and I keep coming back to this oil. So it's the Binac Pro. And so, yes, I'm a very big, she doesn't pay me for doing that. I do sell the oil. I don't have any right now, but I do sell the oil. Now that we don't do that on the store, I have to do it locally. But yes, that's the oil that I use, and that's why I use it. Okay, what's the next question? Trying to be a better trumpet player, and I've been watching your videos. And what other advice would you give me for as a person and me as a trumpet player? Well, I wouldn't be able to answer that question without knowing you, right? That's kind of a hard question to answer. What other advice as a person? Well, do you know what? Let me tell you this first. It bothers me. I remember in, I guess the early 90s, I had a bunch of friends that said they wanted to go into education. And when you talk to them about why they wanted to go into education, every single one of them said it's because they wanted to make a difference in people's lives. They wanted to make a difference in the lives of those students. And if you pry even deeper, they would say stuff like, um, uh, especially the ones that were like private lesson teachers, they saw themselves as shrinks. They saw themselves as like counselors, and they didn't have a problem with people coming into the lesson and they would just talk about girlfriend troubles or boyfriend troubles and stuff like that in the lesson. And that was a real eye opener for me back then, because that's just wrong. That's wrong. You know what? Your motivation for wanting to be a teacher should be to teach. Okay? Well, that's a novel idea. Huh? Your motivation to teach should not be to make a difference in their lives. The difference that you make in their lives should be that they learn. And if you're spending talking about private lesson time right now, right? Talking about private lesson time, if you're spending all that time talking about boyfriend trouble or girlfriend trouble, they're not learning what they're supposed to be learning. Am I not right? You know, that just should not happen in the lesson. And I think the same thing is true as teachers in the schools. You cross that line, and now you've got all kinds of trouble. And you know what? Quite frankly, most of the people that say stuff like that, that's not because they have a passion for those kids. That's because they want to be known as someone who made a difference. It's not that they want to make a difference. That's not, I guess, and what I'm saying is it's not genuine. I make a difference in people's lives all the time. But I don't need people to acknowledge me that way. I don't even desire that. What I desire is to get that job done. So when someone says, what advice do I have for you in life? Now, the stuff that I teach will help you in life because it spills over into life. But I don't cross that line. And I won't cross that line in this channel. If that makes sense. Because if I cross that line, then it becomes, first of all, it becomes something superficial. It's not real. That's not genuine life help. Because as soon as you abandon your objective to make a difference, you know what the old saying was? You put the cart before the horse, right? You put the cart before the horse. You got your priorities all messed up. And that's part of the problem with today's society, right? Today's society has everything screwed up. The job that you have to do, you're not getting that job done, but you're going to now do over this stuff that you think is so important, right? Making a difference. The difference you should make is get your job done. Do what it is you're supposed to do. So in terms of what I can do for what advice do I have for life? I just won't answer that question, okay? Because that's outside of the boundaries of what I'm going to teach here, okay? That's outside of my boundaries. Now, as far as being a better player, I can't stress enough how important it is to spend. Okay, the formula is however much time you're spending performing or rehearsing with other musicians that are at your level. So let's say hypothetically, if you're a school student, like high school, and you spend, let's say 8 hours a week rehearsing or performing with other people at your level through school, then you should be spending at least that much time listening to pro musicians. 8 hours a week at minimum. And the way I like to look at that is to flush all that bad trumpet playing out of your ears, because you're sitting there in band, right? Listening to, and you know what? How often do I have trumpet players come in here and say, but the guy who's first chair, he's so good. I'm like, that dude is in high school. How good could he be? Right? You compare even the best high school trumpet player to the guys you can listen to on Spotify or YouTube. And see, the thing is the sounds that we surround ourselves with. The whole idea of listening to music is to create a musical environment for your mind to grow in, right? And if you're not listening to great musical accomplished players, then the musical environment that you have around you is the other trumpet players in your section. And that's even worse if you're like the top player, because now everyone who you're listening to is worse than you, right? So that's not so cool. So what music do I recommend? I have on my website, and you can, if you go to my website, let me pull it up so I can tell you exactly where to click. Let's see here. So scroll down, go to eddielewis.com, scroll down, and it's under the ads at the top. And when I say ads, I'm talking about my ads, advertising my books and my albums. Then, so halfway down the page, there's this heading called Student Listening. Now those are actual videos that I put aside for my students to listen to. And here's the thing, I want to encourage you that because I have all kinds of different music, I'm looking at it now, and there's a Macedonian band that I just love to listen to, and that's what comes up at the top. If that's not your cup of tea, just click next, okay? You don't have to listen to the whole thing. There's all kinds of music in there. But also, if you scroll down even farther than that, towards the bottom. Oh, wait a second. Ha! It's not there. Okay. Oh, do you know why? Oh, that's not it. Wow. Okay. I thought I put that. I'll have to create a link for that. So to get started, you can use that one student listening link that actually has the embedded YouTube stuff. Or, you know what I'll have to do is put the link in the description here. I have a page that has YouTube searches listed through of all of the different great trumpet players for the classical stuff. I haven't done this yet for the jazz stuff. But yes, I have resources like that on my website. Okay. Can you give your opinion of the quintessential trumpet make and model that you recommend for your high school students? You know what I recommend for my high school students is cheap. I know that sounds weird. I would rather them buy a used pro horn than for them to buy a brand new pro horn. Because at that stage, when you're in high school, a used pro horn compared to a new pro horn isn't going to make any difference whatsoever. Now, it's different if we're talking about the difference between like a student horn and a pro horn. But there's so many pro horns out there. And yes, we want to stick to the main brands, right? Bach and Yamaha, Benj, Shelky. But really, I would rather the students have the cheaper stuff. And part of the reason for that, because you're asking for make and model, and I believe that's a very personal thing. I don't believe in one size fits all, and I won't teach my lessons that way. And the process of finding the right trumpet is not something that happens overnight. You spend your time playing on a horn for a while, and based on the issues that you have on that horn, you can make a more educated decision on the next horn. For example, if the bore is too tight and you're having issues related to the bore being too tight, then the next horn you buy shouldn't have that tight of a bore, right? And stuff like that. So that's how it should be. There isn't a one good horn that everybody should play on. Okay, earlier in this video I was talking about this horn. They don't stock this in large bore. I can't play a medium large bore. Now all my buddies that have that same model have it in medium large. I pick up the exact same horn, but in medium large bore, I can't play that horn. I can't play it. To me, it sounds like it's as irritating as nails on a chalkboard. I can't play it. But somebody else, I have a good friend that played on that same horn, medium large, for like 15 years. For a long time, the two of us, we played in brass quintet together, and we both had the same model. So we would sometimes switch and try it out. I can't play on that exact same model with a medium large bore. So this is stuff that's extremely personal, one player to the next. Now there are some ambidextrous trumpet players, right? They can play anything and it makes it sound good. And I believe that the reason why we have that is that there's some people who play so out of, because when you play to the center of the pitch, and I haven't talked about that much in the videos, when you play to the center of the pitch, that's when you play to the exact pitch that the instrument is tuned to. When you do that, instead of playing a little flat or a little sharp, right? When you do that, you excite the physical properties of the instrument. This is something that does not happen. We call it's a matter of resonance, and it's all scientific, right? If the frequency is perfectly aligned in the center of what the instrument is tuned to, the resonance will make the instrument just play itself. The instrument just rings out. Okay? If you play perfectly in tune, the resonance just rings out. And anyone who does that, the qualities of the instrument now become extremely apparent. Okay? If you play to the center of the pitch, all of the physical qualities of that instrument will ring out. And that's when the instrument makes the most difference. Okay? But there are some people who play deliberately flat on purpose. Okay? There's some, they may not even know they're doing it, but there are some people who play deliberately flat on purpose. And when you do that, that resonance doesn't happen. And so because of that, they can play on any instrument and it will almost always sound just about the same. Because without that resonance, there's nothing involved there that will make that much of a difference. Well, thank you, Samuel. I'm glad you liked the videos. Thank you. I hope that answers the question. You know, I can't give a model like that. I think, I will say this, though. There are some models that are safer than others, right? So like the Bach 37 is a safe instrument, okay? And now, do I tell my students to get a Bach 37? No, I don't. Do they sometimes end up with a Bach 37? Yes, they do. Okay, and that's a good horn. And here's the thing. A high school student has not mastered this center of the pitch stuff yet. Okay, so the high school students almost always fall in the category of what I'm talking about, that the instrument's not going to make that much of a difference. Okay, the instrument for a high school student, and that's part of the reason why they haven't mastered that ability to play to the center of the pitch. If you play to the center of the pitch, then the qualities of the instrument start to ring out. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So yeah, I'm not much of a equipment junkie, and that's been for financial reasons, right? I can't afford to just buy instruments and try stuff out and stuff like that. But the stuff that I do know about the different kinds of horns comes from my understanding of how the instrument works, of how my understanding of how trumpets, the physics of the instrument. Okay, and yes, there are horns out there. I will tell you this also. There's some cheap instruments out there. So like if you want to go and buy an instrument on eBay, I kind of, the way I do it with my students is I have them send me the link so I can take a look. Because there's a lot of ripoffs out there, horns that were made cheaply, and they give it a name that almost sounds like one of the models, brands, right? And you know, that's, and how is somebody who's not been doing this to know that $50 horn that says Bach on it, like Stradivari, right? I think I saw that one time, a Stradivari, and they make that the name. And you know, how's somebody that doesn't do this supposed to know? So yes, I have the students send me links so that I can look at it on eBay and tell them whether it's a halfway decent horn or not. So far, it's gone well every single time. All right, what exercises do you recommend for raising range above high C? Well, I don't recommend any exercises for that. I stopped practicing range exercises. I stopped practicing range exercises in the mid 80s. And let me tell you this, when I stopped practicing range exercises, I did not even have a G above the C. I mean, a G above the staff, I mean. So my philosophy for building range is not, I want to stay away from the exercises actually, because what happens, what we call them range exercises, right? Basically, what is a range exercise? You're trying to play notes that you can't. Let that sink in. You're trying to play notes that you can't. So how are you getting those notes if you can't get them? What are you doing to get those notes? Because I promise you, whatever it is that you're doing to get those notes, not right. And it's different from one player to the next. But if there are notes that are above your range and you're just trying to get them in an exercise, you're actually encouraging bad habits by doing that. So my philosophy for getting higher range is a use it or lose it philosophy. First step is to figure out what is your range. Okay? Figure out what is your current range at this time. And then never practice anything higher than that range. That's the first rule. The second rule is practice everything that you have up to that range. All your scales have to go to that range. All of your lip slurs have to go to that range. All of your articulation studies go to that range. Your long tones go all the way to that range. The music you practice for band or whatever, find some way to make it go to that range. If you pick a solo for band, like solo ensemble, pick a solo that goes up to that range but doesn't pass that range. It's a use it or lose it approach. And what happens, let's say this is your range and you keep going up to it, up to it, up to it, and every day you're going, now there's part of this that I'm not telling you, but I don't have time to tell you the whole thing, okay? But let's say you're going up to that range on a regular basis, but never crossing it. By doing that, you're never changing your embouchure to something that you can't, that's different from what you're already doing. And now you're building that strength, and more importantly, you're collecting familiarity, right? The more you play up to those notes, the more familiar you become with those notes. And through that familiarity, you build the natural ability to go to that next step, to the next range above that. And the way you know that you're ready to do that is when that note starts coming out easy. Let's say you play something that goes up to here, and you're practicing it, da 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 da, and then accidentally you go da 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 da, right? And that note, you don't have a clue at that point what note that was, but you could tell that it was like a whole fourth above the range you've been practicing. And it happens that way. It happens all the time. And when I hear that in the lessons, and the student had no clue, right? Nothing changed in the embouchure. They didn't have to strong arm it, right? When I see that, I know it's time to move the range up. And what happens by practicing always up to the range that you have, you build chops and you build familiarity and you grow into that next range without having to do anything stupid to do it. Okay? So yeah, that's how you do it. Now, and I don't mind I don't mind doing this, but the reason why I have books is because my books, that thing that I was just telling you about, practicing up to your range. Now, you can take the exercises you're already doing and make them go up to your range, or you could buy my books because my books are set up for that. That's why they're there. The Daily Routine book, and the Chops Express. And which book do you buy? The Chops Express is for if you practice less than an hour a day. The Daily Routines book is for when you practice more than an hour a day. Because remember, you're supposed to do 50%, right? No more than 50% of your time should be your exercises. The other 50%, at least 50%, should be practicing music, okay? So yes, my books are written to facilitate that philosophy about building range. I don't advertise them as range books. It's not a range book. But if you use the system the way it's set up, then your range will grow, but it will grow in a way that it's not different from what you're doing already. Okay? So, all the talent in the world and 25 cents. Oh, you didn't know I had books? Well, that tells you how unpushy I am. Maybe I should be doing a better job selling my books, but yeah, the I don't push that stuff. I have this policy that I don't want anybody to buy my stuff if they don't like it. If they're not looking for this stuff, I'm not going to push it on them. And that's true for my lessons. It's true for my sheet music. It's true for my books. The books work. And I have dozens of books. I've written literally dozens of books. If you consider ebooks books, then I've written dozens of them. I started writing books in like 1990. And each book has a different purpose. Like I have a book that helps trumpet players learn how to improvise over giant steps. That book works. Okay? You work on that book and your giant steps gets better. Okay? Each one of the books that I have has a purpose. It has an educational purpose, and those purposes work. Hey Leonard, how you doing? Leonard says he can vouch for my the books and the methods. I think that's what he's saying. My books and the method. And I know that Leonard's been using my stuff for quite a while now, and with his students. And he's a trumpet player down in South Africa. He's been using my materials, and having great success with his students, with the books and the method. And I think the reason why he's separating books and method is because there is a philosophy and approach behind the books that kind of helps to know all that. And Leonard does know. Leonard and I have spent enough time talking that he understands the method. I think out of all the people in the world right now, there are a small handful of people that understand my method. A lot of ex-students and stuff like that. As far as people who have not been my students, Leonard understands my method probably more than anybody else because he's been so active with it. So, finishing the statement, all the talent in the world and 25 cents, I actually don't know what to say about that. I don't know what that is. Is that like a cliche or something? I don't know. And unfortunately, I'm running out of time. I have a student in 7 minutes. So I can't even ask for more questions at this point because as long-winded as I am, I wouldn't be able to finish the answer. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with me. I think this is the best Q&A session we've had so far. So yeah, thanks. And God bless you guys. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you on the next one. Oh, by the way, I know I said this at the beginning. But some of you weren't here. No Q&A next week. I'll be out of town on a gig. All right? So, all right. We'll see you guys next time. Enjoy your week. Bye.